Trajectories. Imagine and reflect. You are in a world of machines where the essence of what it means to be human is forgotten and archived, managed by a server. You live in a system where everything is taken care of: food, entertainment, shelter, sex, all provided without the necessity of movement or effort on your part, all by the server. All your anxieties are tranquilized. You no longer need to feel tied to life support, by, for, and through the machine, from life until death. Life that is already dead. You no longer need to work. You no longer need to contribute anything into the economy. No decisions need to be made, for the technology and social systems will perfectly optimize and predict every need. Not too long ago, you were assigned digital currency to spend on certain items. Items only approved to be purchased to protect and save the climate. The climate you no longer bear any relation to. You needed to use the currency before its set expiration date, programmed by the system. There was no saving, there was no wealth creation, for there was no longer any concept of ownership. Here, you own nothing and are happy until you are no longer happy. Now, there is no longer an economy. The system has reached singularity. There is no longer a need for a social credit score and a digital economy where your behaviors are directed, dictated, closely monitored, and controlled, for you no longer need to think and exit your room. You are no longer a slave in society and are now a prisoner in a cell. You no longer have any thoughts. You no longer need to think, nor how to think, only what to believe. Thinking is no longer needed, and you cannot think outside what the system wants you to think. You are convinced you finally have everything you need. The struggle to survive is no longer there. There is no real struggle. You survive on the bare minimum, for you know no other. There is no longer any creativity. We used to create art, literature, and music that would move men, connect to land and nature. Then, people like you started to create content purely for the sake of consumption, by the spectacle, content with no negativity. However, the machine now does this automatically. It adjusts and adapts to what you find entertaining and generates content on your behalf to share to others, providing you unlimited response, artificial attention, a dopamine drip on repeat. The drive to be seen, to be heard, to be felt, to be noticed, lost touch in physical form within communities and practices and began to be regulated to the server. Social media driving a narcissistic spirit and birthing the spectacle. This core instinct of survival is now no longer needed. You no longer need to leave the server to consume, validate, expose, and share yourself online. The server perfectly curates the simulations you need to see in order to feel in the absence of anything being seen or felt. The server provides you with an endless stream of simulated experiences designed to mimic engagement, connection, and fulfillment. The simulation of being accepted and part of a community. To a large extent, you are no longer needed. You do not need to be there. The machines can operate and sustain on their own. In the past, humans were needed to maintain the machine. Now, machine is needed to maintain the human, or at least the shell of one. You no longer need to worry about anything. What previously was going to school, to become a slave, to work, to consume to work, to take part in the spectacle, to be socially present online, to live purely for consumption and the spectacle, and then die. Everything is taken care of for you. There is no concept of pain and suffering. There is only comfort and pleasure, albeit all by simulation without the other, without effort, without risk, without story and negativity. You are paralyzed and know no different. Technology has allowed a perfected totalitarian state, one where it no longer uses and discards them, instead has made them disappear entirely. In this case, what are they controlling when there is no longer anything to control? The ruler has no work, has no friends, There is no slave and no master. There is no one to oppress. The virtual world is your only world. You are always connected wirelessly to the screen plastered onto your eyes. Outside, there is no architecture, only machine. The city is endless. It goes on forever, of and for itself. All the problems the city birthed itself are solved thanks to the absence of the human. Nature here is extinct. The city is no longer desirable and cannot compete with your virtual world. A world you can create and visit infinitely, for the virtual city is endless, the physical is not. In this world, you are both everywhere and nowhere, a ghost in a machine that no longer serves human interests, but has become an end in itself. The question of control, of governance, becomes moot in a world where there is nothing left to control, where the very concept of humanity has been redefined and diminished. In this ultimate realization of a dystopian future, the loss is not just of freedom, but of the very things that make life worth living: the struggle, the joy, the pain, and the triumph of the human spirit. You are no longer. This was an excerpt from a piece of writing that I had performed, of which I'm using to essentially spark the conversation and reveal the discourse at large, of which can be thought of as, again, like, why hasn't everything already disappeared? So this connects to a few things, actually, which I'd like to bring up later on, just in decline, but this is more kind of seen as like a future projection or trajectory as to how I predict or imagine or kind of foresee how things are going to lead to, which, to be fair, it's not even like the need to be human, but more so like the need to exist and be alive in this world. And there's a few things already that are kind of being questioned at the moment, because right now there's huge agenda on mate suppression is how I take it. Everything really just boils down to mate suppression, whether it's the city, the server, mass migration, the loss of work, both the digital server, so social media and all that involved, and the loss of, the other communication, narrative, story, just like care in the other on one side, but then also like the physical server, mass alienation, loneliness, affordability, just being surrounded by, I don't know, just all these people at once, both in physical space but also in digital space as well, of which we increasingly retreat to kind of escape from the physical environment that we're not biologically in tune with, let's say. More on the consumer society, again, like the loss of care, just everything boils down to mate suppression. Then, feminism was kind of like a very early pivot towards this regard, and the control of the nuclear family, the destruction of the nuclear family, the destruction of gender, what it means to be human, of which also further breaks down into transhumanism, no longer having gender roles, difference in work, in jobs, and standards, the destruction of binaries, again, moving women to the workplace, moving men out of the workplace, furthermore, the replacement of either or in their traditional roles, so the man's ability to, a baseline default, protect and provide, the females, based on default, let's say, to care, to raise a family, etc. There is no longer a home, there's no longer a family to take care of, to have the first at all. There's no incentive. People don't want anymore. People are like forcibly, suppressing themselves. We spend our best years now, quote unquote, in school, at work, all for what? To serve. It's not really to serve the machine, because like, how much are you really serving the machine? Most of these jobs are email jobs at that. Like, they hardly provide any value or meaning to the system, but in that, the value that they're providing is exactly the value that the system needs to derive in order to prevent one from having kids, from meeting the other, et cetera, et cetera. So instead, you just build a super individualistic kind of achievement society, consumer society, and in the absence of meaning, people consume more. And in the inverse, in the surplus of meaning, in the complete creation or the complete access to meaning, people consume less. They think less inwardly and think more collectively speaking, whether it's collective in their neighbors, their community, their society, their family, of which, again, that all goes down through mass migration, total homogeneity, low trust society, low trust cultures, a lot more on this, and just, again, really this like no longer need for the other, again, of which is happening by design. So this now kind of rolls into, why hasn't everything already disappeared? And it's like the future will be where, in my opinion, from how I see it or how it's been going on, it's like, just in terms of like mate suppression, like it's not that man won't need a woman, and it's not that a woman won't need a man, but by destroying any thought or ability to have children in the first place, the biological instinct to still be with another will still be unfulfilled, which it is still today, and of which is getting erupted because of like dating apps, social media, just like changing standards. Really, social media has destroyed, like the screen has completely cooked society, but at that, it's like men will find a way to get their rush or attention from, less so attention, but like finding ways to obtain sex, because it's more so sexual access for men and more like attention along those lines for women. So because it's like, you think of like blue collar, white collar stuff, where you think of, it's like whether men will just have access to fucking sex robots and women will have their own like male robot which will protect them, so to speak, or whatever, like protect them, provide for them. I don't know about provide, because the state, Big Brother, will provide, but it's like, imagine some sort of like robot or some sort of system where a woman will just have like their series of husbands or whatever, just be able to get this unlimited dopamine rush from like an AI drive online. I mean, what difference is it now to get attention from one based on default a real life individual, to now quote unquote real life individuals who are all playing a performative act in the spectacle as like these online avatars on dating apps and social media, etc. Do they just fucking give themselves out like nothing? Versus that being just similar in the first place, right? So there will no longer even be a need for that man. So it's like people just be totally divided. So then the man who is online, who is getting replaced, whether that's done through like social media, OnlyFans, or whatever else, just giving attention to these women, will get replaced. The system will just have total control over this. And then the man who just wants sexual access, I mean, again, by baseline defaults, for the hope and prosperity to procreate and to have children, of which is getting made worse by design because no one's going to own anything, quote unquote. Heck, are there even any jobs in the first place? Whole other discussion. So it's like the whole thing would be like men are just going to have like these sex robots or these AI simulated girlfriends or whatever else to give them the simulation of the other in the complete absence of the other. So it's like people just be completely divided at that. So it's like, and then it's like, it's gonna be sold as like, hey, no BS, you just pay the subscription, she'll have sex when you want, no talking back, she won't ghost you, she won't do this. And then on the complete inverse, it's like this man, he won't cheat. I'm not saying one cheats more than the other, but it's all bullshit today. But I think it's all happening by design. Like, had it not worked for so long, and then why did feminization or the feminist movement, all this take hold of, which has completely destroyed everything, to be completely fair with you. So yeah, I think right now the whole piece would be on really just like, why hasn't everything already disappeared? Which going off topic, but back on topic, we can focus more on the topic of like work, and which then also creates a case for ABI on value in society. One's value is really derived from their ability to provide and contribute to the greater good for society, etc. Furthermore, on one becoming superfluous, on no longer being needed and becoming, let's say, less and less, and what one's ability to provide value for society will look like. So when you just look at work today, it's like, simply speaking, like, what will happen when one no longer needs to work? What will happen when, it's already happening right now, like jobs are getting erased tenfold right now. But and so what will this future look like, where we are no longer needed in society, right? We will kind of just like live amongst the machines, and the machines will do everything for us, right? We once lived in a world where we did things for each other, but when the machines take over, the machines take hold, why it all, like, what's the need to still have children? What's the need to procreate? What's the need to work a job unless you'll have some sort of simulated job? It's like, hey, you want to be an architect? Sure, you consider it a simulated desk and design your fake buildings that will never get built, but maybe you can build it in your simulation in your game or something. So yeah, it really begs the question, because it's like, once, I mean, has there not always been a need for human labor in society, which also expands into post-labor economics and all that? But what all happens when man, or female, but like man's labor is no longer needed, no longer conducive, like no longer a need, or is no longer just a piece, is no longer, how do I say it, something that can contribute to society? Like, what happens at that point? So, and think of most jobs, right? Whether it's blue collar, white collar work. White collar, for the most part, is mostly like bureaucratic. And I mean, STEM fields are getting cooked right now. Mass layoffs are taking place. People are quiet quitting. A lot of firms and offices and companies are, performing hiring freezes. Like, the need for human labor is just not the same as it was before. And that goes with a lot of jobs, right? But once the machine takes over, how many people do you need to maintain the machine, etc.? So, as if jobs are not bullshit or fake already, there might be this whole class of people who are just working fake jobs just to busy themselves with their day. And then again, this also creates a case for UBI. People will revolt. And I think this also creates an interesting scenario, because it's like, imagine all this young generation of men who are now without work, whether they finish school, wanted to go to school, or, right, like whether they're in school or they finish school already and they're out of work. It's like, would that not create a huge uprising or revolt? So that will be an interesting scenario. And I mean, this is just my prediction on what I think will end up anyways at the end of the day. So whether it happens in the near future or later on, just kind of how I see it. And you think of stuff right now. So I was saying, like, further division of like man and woman, but it's like, why would there be a need to create art or to create music? And I mean, if everything is now actually consumed for the most part through the online spectacle, what happens if like most of these, let's say, content creators or whatever else have like an AI replacement? I think it really creates a case for people to come back together in the real world, or what's left of it, and to try and escape the city and try and meet one another, speak to one another, where voices can touch again, where we can quite literally like feel one another, feel one another's presence, or warmth, or just shared space in that same room. And so what happens when, the city kind of displays it right now, at a very kind of earlier stage, let's say, where you have this world where, the objects, the people, the events, while they continue to exist, they've lost all all weight, all reality, all consequence, all symbolic change. They might still physically be there, yet they're already gone. One side note is, even in the server, the digital server completely abolishes and erases everything, but even the physical server, both of them of which are, quite clearly an apparatus of disappearance. You just look at all these like mass, I don't even like calling them condos, or because condo it's a term that represents architecture or building, but like these machine blocks, which again, they too replace reality with a perfect frictionless simulation that needs nothing from the old world, right? They're referenceless. And then again, the people inside them, they don't need to care, they don't need to own, they don't need to reproduce, they don't need to even be fully alive. They just need to keep that simulation perpetually running. More than that, this will expand further into like the server, but you just have thousands of humans technically inside, but no one is present inside these server blocks of just data. And while you might maybe smell a bit or hear some faint voices, beneath the door, through the walls, it's really not a building. They're just individual. It's quite literally like a prison cell, just a server rack for bodies to exist and to be expended of. So yeah, I guess that just goes back to my thing on what happens in this future. Like, people just be all in their simulation, working their fake jobs or whatever, or maybe not, and then they'll get their UBI, of which, again, by design, they'll be forced to expend it by a certain amount of time if they've been awarded their BI, etc., just barely to survive, which is completely surveilled, tracked, their expenditures, whether they get some like drip kind of food source, or even like a drip for like their dopamine source, etc. And maybe they are allowed their server blocks once in a while, or maybe they're allowed outside entirely. But yeah, like what would that look like? It's so utterly dystopian. I don't even want to. It's disgusting. It's like, yeah, everyone will be in their, whether they're VR, AR glasses, or they'll just be like CCTV everywhere, and then they're forced to like go back inside. Like, literally, what happens if like you have this space where like all those jobs no longer exist, and whether people are like forced to be divided, or whether you just have all strangers and everyone is just like numbered, etc. Who knows? Like, I haven't thought of it in that kind of manner or aspect. More so just, this future where you're just no longer needed in society, like your work, your labor, your existence. It's like, why would there be even a need to give birth anymore? So how would even birth take place? Like, again, back to like transhumanism, where it's like, hey, no one's having kids anymore, and we have to like keep up the population. And I guess if they're not going to use mass migration from like the third world, then they're gonna be like, so we have to like, mass produce babies and call them babies. They're really, what do you call it from Blade Runner? Yes. Replicants, the fictional bioengineered humanoids. Right, replicants. So whether they're just replicants that get, sent out, and then maybe there are still some real people that survive, but I don't know, how else are people gonna have kids if there's no money in society, there's no jobs in society, the whole social media tunnel just goes worse, or just keeps going in its current direction, where like people that want one another, like you have this extreme level of like hypergamy, people's standards are out of whack, nuclear family has been destroyed, there's no longer any incentive for both genders, like men are like, F this, divorce rates are through the roof, I want to have kids, but like no one's traditional anymore, etc. And then on the inverse, women are like, why would I need a man if I can get all my attention unlimited so through the online spectacle? And why do I need a man to protect me if I have the state or whatever else, or who knows, or to provide for me, because I'm a strong independent woman, I can make my own money, etc. And then just the hypergamy, they naturally speaking want to date across and above, anyways. But yeah, like what happens in that instance? And then I'm just thinking too, it's like, back in terms of like work, why create art if people can, or why create music if it can be like everything? It's like, is there a machine replacement for that? Is there a way to access that through the machine? Like, why do X if the machine can create X, or like if the machine can create Y or Z, right? So like, what's the need of the human being as a resource, as a cog in the machine? Which, the human body is no more than like an energy drive for the machine to sustain itself. But if or when, that has been replaced, why even need a human being here at all, right? Look at that, like creating content. Can't people have like their AI twins, or won't there be like AI influencers online that look just like someone you see already, but then maybe they sell their rights, or they're able to be online 24/7, so you never have to like wait for them to upload their video weekly, or then they can create exactly the content flow you like, or the music you like, or the videos you like, or whatever else it is that you like. Most people consume 99% of stuff today through the server, right? How many hours, like whether it's pictures, videos, music, whatever else, right? Is it not all done already on the phone? So if or when, we're already kind of on the cusp now, where there's it's like this new version of, was it Nano Banana or something, where it's getting crazy. I mean, it's been getting mainstream for like the last, 4 years, like Midjourney and all this other stuff, and Stable Diffusion now with Nano Banana and all that. It's like it's indistinguishable at this point, and I think, again, which creates a really good case for people to return back to the real and to experience kind of like analog forms of media or analog forms of content or ways or means of experience that I don't want to say are not able to be replicated, but it's memory, or it's just stuff that happens in the real and that is not experienced through the hyperreal. And hopefully, if so, of which that you're not really incentivized to try and capture it for the hyperreal, because it's like, again, if we talk about like layers of observation, or it's like most people, it's quite narcissistic, but like by design, most people do stuff not really for the offline, but more for the online. So it's like, if you don't exist online, you don't exist at all. It's like most people today do things for the most part to create the content to post and share it online, and had they not posted and shared it online, it's almost as if it never happened in the first place. And you were no longer, and it's almost like, and then you were no longer there. So maybe I'll leave it at that. Again, these are, for the most part, completely unscripted, and I'm reading through some notes, but it's just another note that I kind of want to get out there, that just sits in my mind, that, it's kind of like, it's been marinating for so long, and you just want to cook it. So I think for now I'll just leave it at that. This concept of disappearance, of fading into obsolescence, rather than extinguishing our existence through direct means, is poignantly explored by Jean Baurdillard in his last text, 2 months before his death, titled, "Why Hasn't Everything Already Disappeared?" The text opens with a provocative statement about envisioning a world devoid of human being, suggesting that humanity began its own process of disappearance with the advent of scientific analysis. Baudrillard argues that this dissolution is accelerated by the pervasiveness of technology, which has now reached a point where it fulfills all human potentialities. In becoming purely operational and fully integrated with technological means, humans effectively render themselves obsolete. While society becomes more advanced and saturated with information and technology, aspects of reality, meaning, and authenticity begin to vanish. The once vital bond between humans and the world starts to unravel, as the world no longer requires human representation to exist or be understood. This theme resonates with Baudrillard's broader critique of postmodern society, where the real and the symbolic undergo a process of detachment, and reality becomes a series of simulacra without original reference. The proliferation of images, signs, and simulacra in the postmodern world has led to a kind of nullification of reality itself. Here, everything becomes a simulation, an imitation that has lost its connection to the real. This leads to a state where distinguishing between what is real and what is simulated becomes increasingly difficult, if not impossible. Continuing from this point, we find a world today in which the real has disappeared, and with it, the essence of what it means to be human. We are edging towards a state of not being needed anymore, like cattle in a pasture, no longer required for sustenance. We have disappeared for the server, live unconsciously inside of it, and in that act, disappear from the world. Our disappearance is not marked by our physical vanishing, rather the loss of our relevance. We find ourselves fighting to be seen and noticed in a landscape dominated by visibility, and yet no reality, only non-things, simulations, and a society absorbed by the spectacle. We disappear through becoming superfluous and through simulation, existing in a system that increasingly governs our lives, rendering many of us capable of existing in a sort of disabled state where the server caters to our basic needs with pure access to food and entertainment. We continually turn into our little virtual worlds away from reality, becoming the simulacra of someone in the hyperreal to make up for our being missing in the real, and still, by that, nowhere to be found. Humans do not exist in virtual formats, yet we completely take it as they do. This is the norm. We will be observed as that which no longer leaves a mark on the world outside of life, inward and inauthentic, one that conforms with the crowd and into the server. Our traditional roles of creation, nurturing, living authentically, and contributing to society will seem inverted. Established institutions and values will be torn down, giving way to a cycle of consumption, decadence, and a surrender to hedonism. All that's left, whether or not we need to work, we will operate in meaningless jobs, exchanging our efforts for digital currency, only to consume and feed back into an otherwise vacuous system, not too different from today. Work, slave, consume, most of these taking place online, then die. We are kept entertained, trapped, obedient, compliant, and stuck within what appears as a perfected system, living lives that are, for the most part, overly cared for. All we are programmed to concern ourselves with are fabrications and simulations in tune with a narcissistic spirit. On the TV, in the media, our social online presence, our social credit, chasing after false virtues and more commodities, all feeding back into the spectacle, with all other needs lost or forgotten. The human struggle will disappear, and by that, all progress will be done by the servers. Because of this, there will be no rebellion, no revolt. We will not die out, but rather, we will disappear.